Hello, it's Henry again. I'm going to embark on a new video venture here, um, broadcasting from the Flickr Street studio, which is also doubling as my eBay store. Hoping to move the eBay store upstairs and return this to a full studio uh, situation down here. Today I made notes on perhaps what I could be covering. You know, I don't usually use notes, I eschew them, but there's just so much going through my head. I feel like this would be the best thing to do. So I was attempting to decide what my next video would be, whether it be on my story Flickr Street, which that is a strong attraction to me. That one I'll definitely be using notes. Another personal one, which I think probably not. I have kind of, for now, made, I don't want to say all, but majority of really pressing personal statements I needed to make. Where was I at in life? What was going on with me? What was this crash about? What were my feelings about dealing with my past and confronting that or not confronting it? And yeah, I covered a lot of ground there, especially in the video called Where I Am in the Crash Site. I'm still in the crash site. This is the crash site. If you saw more of the house, you'd really think it was a crash site, but some of the house is immaculate and some of it's just completely gone to seed. But I am but one man, and with two jobs and health issues, so I haven't been able to maintain my home as much as I'd like, but I do have a systematic plan to get it all in shape, hopefully all by next month. A friend wanted to visit me from California around this time, and I finally told her I can't really entertain at this point. It's just going to be too much stress having to get everything ready and then work and everything. I didn't feel like either one of us were going to have a good experience with that kind of looming. So, and I've learned, that I have to be really circumspect with such things, because sometimes what I think is presentable and nice is not so much to someone else. I don't know. Anyway, the next kind of video I could be making is a blue review. I have a couple episodes in mind. And then the other thing, which I just kind of literally pulled this out of my bag, notes I'd taken a time ago, several weeks ago, which were going to be my notes on on syllabus for an imaginary film class, which the purpose of which, put it bluntly, or simply, was to help someone learn about film, help someone expand their knowledge of film itself by watching more and learning more about the vocabulary of film, putting more things in context, always important in the arts, and also how to write about film. So in other words, it was like a class. I was going to encourage people to write theses or essays, not for me to be graded, but just so they could get in the habit of, when they needed to discuss a film or write a review, because a lot of my friends are writers, they would be able to kind of get to the meat of it. And whereas I haven't worked in film, the filming part of it, I have worked around the fringes of it in retail, and I have done a good bit of film criticism, a lot of which has gotten published, so it's been a number of years since a hard copy of mine has come out. So for now, these reviews on here are really my main outlet for that. But it's, it's easier, to speak to just be forthright and communicate what's on my mind. And fortunately, my mind works fast, so uh, I can kind of ad lib it. But unfortunately, it goes too fast sometimes and faster than I can speak. And in trying to keep up with my brain, my mouth starts to slur things together. And I find that a little embarrassing, and I apologize for the many times that has happened since I began this video series. Um, but anyway, in the most relaxed way I can, I'm going to try to go through these outlines that I made for this imaginary class. I have some Twin Peaks music on in the background, so that should always fuel my mood. So the lay persons, indeed, it's for a lay person. That's my other note. Is an auto, or actually another had another alternate title, an autodidact syllabus for an imaginary film class. But I kind of feel like it's an imaginary film class, so that kind of implies that it's going to be uh, taken on by an autodidact. And we'll get to autodidact in a little bit and how this ties in with helping you become an autodidact, better one, and if you want to put it that way, and learning even more, gleaning even more, approaching topics more vigorously, to where you can extract that knowledge, without any formal teaching, but you'll know what to look for, how to look for it. I don't have all the answers to that, but I've been doing it long enough to where I have advice. And that's really all this is advice. I'm just kind of pretending it's a class and I'm a teacher and using those very, basic parameters. But this is no master class. This is no all the answers. Who am I anyway? Let's get all that out of the way. So I have two parts of a, not sure how long the outline will be ultimately, but I have two parts broken down so far. One is parameters and one is syllabus. The syllabus itself, which will basically be what are the materials I'm going to suggest, not assign per se, but strongly suggest people check out and follow where it leads them. So parameters are quite long, and some of the same things are stated in a different way from time to time. So I apologize for that, but I'm just going to go ahead and do these bullet points, which just kind of I think are important. We'll see if I still think all of them are of equal measure of importance, but this is what I had come up with initially. And I'll try to give examples where I can of how you can apply these things. So the first one is challenge yourself. Basically, step outside your comfort zone. Try film genres and filmmakers that you might not normally choose to watch. See if you gain anything from these other frontiers. In other words, if you are only into horror, then it's going to be hard being a cinephile going forward. Horror is probably the genre that people get the most passionate about who are into it. It's probably my favorite genre. However, I'm not a horror fan per se in that sense. I don't fetishize everything horror related. I do have friends that do, and more power to them, but I'm more into the arts and the medium and what all can the medium provide us. And the medium of film and cinema can provide us much more than horror or science fiction or superheroes or westerns. Genre cinema is a huge important part of my learning and will be a huge part of anything I want to pass on. But at the same time, anything that keeps you in a certain rut for a long period of time to where you're really you don't have even a grounding in other things. I don't know. I think that's it starts to make you intellectually lazy. It starts to make you unable to hold your own in conversation or in your writing about such topics. It gives you a narrow view, and you have to always assume that you know virtually nothing. The only way when you're writing about film that you're going to fake it is if you know about things. It might not be things you've experienced, but you need to do the research and figure out, um, you know, learn information, and hopefully your curiosity will motivate you to keep going with that, and then to experience the works of various authors or auteurs, I rather. Um, so that's challenge yourself. Have a plan. That's number two. Have a plan. However ambitious the plan is, or maybe unambitious, but sometimes we can set our sights too high. That's okay. I think it's better to go too high than too low. Um, and basically this means, okay, I would like to learn about Rainer Werner Fassbinder, a filmmaker. How do I go about this? Well, I could try to track down things to read about him on the internet. And in so doing, that can also bolster my plan because I can take notes, mental or, actual, and say, this is what a general consensus seems to think are his important works. Ones that I absolutely should see or should start with and kind of work my way around. Um, Randomly picking titles is fine. A plot synopsis may catch your fancy. But that really is more to do with what am I going to watch tonight rather than this kind of thing. Everyone does the what am I going to watch tonight. We're trying for something a little deeper. Whether we achieve it or not, who knows? Who cares? But anyway, so you say to yourself, I'm going to watch these 5 recommended Fassbinder movies, highly recommended across the board in the next 2 weeks. So then you make it your mission to find these films. If you have to watch them only for free because, like me, you're fairly, not wealthy, then that's okay. Scour the streaming sites. If you have to go through YouTube and try to find bootlegs of these videos, that's better than nothing, especially if they have subtitles. If they don't have subtitles and you're still like just wanting to experience it at its most basic level, then go for it. But try to get the most complete print and the most accurate print as far as saying what the filmmaker is trying to say that you can. It's not always possible. But anyway, that would give you a grounding in, say, Fassbinder. So then, like, after 2 weeks, you're starting to absorb Fassbinder. You're starting to go, oh, yeah, there's a certain thread here. And you may just feverishly then dive into his other works, or you may decide to wait a while and move on to some other filmmakers to expand, because it's good to have a deep knowledge. It's good to have a broad knowledge. I don't think one is more important than the other in the world of aesthetics. I think both can serve you very well, be it deep or broad. And that brings me to the third point, and this is something I learned from journalism, immersion, that crazy word. And immersion would mean, say I'm researching an article on a particular subject. I need to immerse myself in information about that subject. I need to get as close to the milieu of that subject as possible. With art, of course, you can kind of feel that through the artist's work a lot of times. Sometimes it's oblique. Sometimes the artist is very different than their work. But the fact is, and we'll get to knowledge in a minute. That's an important thing. Is that knowledge, you have to make it work for you. You can't just learn something for the sake of learning it, or learn it because it makes you feel smarter than the next guy. Otherwise, there's really no point in being into the arts. Or I should say, then you're not really into the arts. You're just kind of a dilettante and people will perceive you that way and treat you that way. And if you have any aspirations to being more, they're going to be very difficult to fulfill with that reputation on your shoulders. Now, I'm not saying everyone is going to be hoity-toity and pretentious and arrogant and stuck up toward you. I'm just saying that the very least we can do, and I learned this from a life of being bullied, the very least we can do when we go out into the world and when we put out something we create into the world, uh, the very least we can do is avoid being embarrassed. Just avoid embarrassment, because it'll slow you down, it'll make you doubt yourself. Whereas if you go in with tools, the proper tools, and give it a shot, there's a more than even chance that you're going to acquit yourself, you know, as a knowledgeable person, or at least you're going to be able to fake it until you make it, so to speak. In other words, you're going to be able to hold those heavy conversations or heavy, articles at bay long enough for you to fill in the blanks. But if you go into the outset showing, I really don't know anything about this, and glaringly pass over very common information or very strong information because you didn't have a plan, then yeah, it's going to be a mess. So, trying to get people to avoid that if they want to do this. I wrote a little side note: take it seriously as a study, but have fun. Uh, and it is fun to track down stuff, especially if you are someone who is kind of geekish and loves, useless trivia and ephemera like I do. I wrote in quotes, having fun doesn't mean slipping back into comfort viewing. That's true. You can have fun and then go, wow, I'm having so much fun. I'm going to put on this, hilarious movie I've watched 587 times because I know that I'm going to have fun with it. And that's going to keep my fun going. And that's almost like saying, I'm trying a cocktail and I'm really enjoying it. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and just get completely smashed because I know, I'll be the, off my rocker. And that's reliable. Um, Maybe a bad analogy, maybe not. Um, the next point I would say is commit to being an autodidact. And then I wrote no half-assery. Well, true. Study assiduously. Uh, that's the only way you're going to make it in the world as an autodidact because you're competing with people who have these pieces of paper that say, I learned blah, blah, blah. And they may not have retained any of that blah, 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 but they retained enough to fake their way in through and possibly have a nicer job than you do as far as the pay. And an autodidact, though, can achieve those levels too, but they have to be educated and they have to educate themselves a little sterner than they were accepting education from, say, public schools, because they have to have that discipline to keep doing it, and of course the curiosity. Um, Curiosity is important in all of this, uh, but sometimes curiosity can play out. Somebody can lose their curiosity, and etc., which is fine for a particular topic, which is fine if you can shift gears onto another topic and pursue that train. But if you're just kind of, you're not patient, you don't have the attention span. Um, I don't know. I mean, there are medications for that. I mean, I'm not judging anybody. I'm just saying there are exercises for that. How to concentrate. There are herbal supplements. Ginkgo biloba. I mean, who knows? We can each sharpen our minds in different ways, and I don't think one way is right for everyone at all. But I do think there are several correct ways for several kinds of people. It's just a matter of finding that groove. Uh, because there's one thing when you're in school and you're very intelligent and your mind is wandering off and you think, I don't need all this bullshit. I'm already learning all this stuff on my own. Uh, and then you get out of school and you really don't need most of the bullshit. And so you feel vindicated. So then you continue to be like, when knowledge comes your way, you may have a tendency to continue to be like, well, I don't need that bullshit. I'm just going to go with this bullshit because it looks cool. And fine and dandy, but if you're going to pursue that thread, then you need to have a very, 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 you need to obtain a very deep knowledge of that thing that you think is so cool. Because surely a lot of other people think it's cool too and can articulate that much better than you if you have blown it off as any serious kind of learning experience. Um, Taking things to heart, absorbing them, uh, don't let knowledge just be a bunch of words. You know, um, that's not really knowledge. So I'll get to knowledge in a minute. Other advice on how to go ahead and round yourself out as a film watcher slash film student slash film writer: pursue connections. Uh, so if some works are written down in a syllabus for you, and you say you've watched about 5 movies out of 20 movies that week that you were assigned, um, you may go, wow, I noticed that 3 of these movies have the same cinematographer, and I really like the way this looks. It may be even simpler than that. You may not know what a cinematographer does. You may just say, these 3 movies look alike, and they all look good. So, then you have to learn who is the artist and why. Why does something look good? Why does it appeal to you? You know, we're all a bit more involved, I think, than I like it because it's nice. We're not in the jungle with Kimba the White Lion. We're far ahead of that, man. I mean, we're on the internet. I mean, think about all this micro technology that we're taking advantage of here. Um, those people weren't like, yeah, I like that because it's nice, and then just kind of move on about their way, and then no further study needed. And I'll get to that attitude again in a little bit. Um, but anyway, if you see common denominators, pursue them. You don't have to pursue them doggedly, like it's some detective, but you can go, well, hey, uh, I like this actor. He's really good in 3 of these films. What else has he done? And then you can go research him, and then you're going to start branching out, literally branching out like a family tree. Um, so the next thing would be take recommendations. Don't turn down honest, earnest, sincere recommendations. You may not get around to ever watching the movies that you've been handed, but it doesn't hurt to take note of them and file them away. However, if you are going to file them away indefinitely, then that's cool. Life is hard. We only have so much time to watch movies. Um, but if you really think you're going to file it away indefinitely, then think about it again and maybe just, I already got 897 movies on my watch list. Do I really need 900? I can let go of those 3 recommendations. They'll come around again. What I mean? Unless it's something that has convinced you that it has some importance in this context. For instance, if you have your plan and you're challenging yourself, and you're expanding what it means to be an autodidact through immersion, in that case, you are going to more easily pick up on, oh, this is an important work. It just fell below my radar because I haven't been able to recognize these things yet. And we all miss things. I mean, it's a bottomless well of art that humanity has wrought. We could be diving for an eternity, but that's part of the enjoyment of it. It's good to have a grounding, though, before you dive deeper and deeper. Um, Once you have a broad grounding, dive as deep as you wish in whatever waters you enjoy the most, by all means. But just understand that uh, being an autodidact can make you a polymath, a level of a polymath, or it can make you the level of a dilettante. So you have to decide, which do I want to be? Or do I want to be an autodidact? If you don't want to be an autodidact, then this whole course here is irrelevant to you. Um, but as far as take recommendations, take them, but don't go too far afield. In other words, if somebody gives you a whole new genre and it just for a minute or two catches your fancy, don't follow that gleaming object, with some kind of, don't, pop a few Ritalin and go, oh, okay, hold on, yeah. Um, because you can get lost down these rabbit holes very easily. And so, in other words, if somebody says, check out the new Netflix show, and you go, oh, yeah, I'm going to put it on my watch list. Is that part of your syllabus? Is that part of your curriculum? I mean, not necessarily with my format, but your own personal format. I mean, are you just doing it because it's on Netflix, or because it's new, or because it's a certain genre, and any of one of those three things has given you viewing satisfaction? Probably so, at least until you explore it more. And of course, exploration is always the key. You're not going to learn anything until you get down into it. So that brings me to knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge with depth and purpose, however, is far more powerful. Knowledge with context and intention is even more powerful. Knowing facts is terrific, but know the meanings of the content as well. Do not become a rote reciter of facts alone. And then when someone asks you, what do you really believe about this particular bit of information? And you are not able to answer in a way that is convincing or authentic, then you've pretty much failed in learning it. You know, you've learned it again. In that case, you're just like you're back in school. You've learned just enough to pass, you know, and thinking I don't really need all this other bullshit. And that may not be your attitude, but people who discourse with you may feel that's what your deal is. People will perceive you as shallow, a dilettante, not serious, which is fine. I mean, that could just disrupt a few, you know, potential dates or some, you know, meetings up at the theater or in a party. But in the bigger experience, like especially online, if you're going to be part of a community, then it's incumbent upon you to be prepared, to be corrected, well, to be criticized, to possibly be belittled by people who know more or think they know more. If you don't think this cat knows more than you, then double check your shit. Go on Google. You know, you can do it fast while this guy's droning on your community page. Go on Google and pull the facts out that are going to prove your point, and bring them up. And like I said, that may not be enough time to gain any kind of more than shallow meaning read from those facts, but that's a start. You know, at least you'll be armed with the truth. But then, you know, you have to figure out, is art just a simple truth? Is it just one truth this artist brings to me in one way, and he wants me to interpret it this way, and I'm going to interpret it that way, and then we're all good? No, that's not what it's about. I mean, there may be some kinds of art like that, sure, but I mean, there's levels all the way through it as to how much of it is what the artist is putting out, the energy they're putting out, and how much you are receiving and bringing back to the work. And it's good to be aware of these things. And it's good to be open to other people making you aware of these things. So, goals of this course, so to speak. This is all pretty basic, and I've already probably mentioned most of it in a different way. But I'll go ahead and read a few of my notes. Teach the fundamentals of learning film as an art form. Okay. Number 2, familiarize yourself with essential works of the medium. Exposure and hopefully understanding of the works. 3, learn to possibly write reviews that convey the information and the meaning. And I kind of quoted Bruce Lee to myself here. In Enter the Dragon, he says, "What was that? An exhibition? We need emotional content. Emotional content. Now try again." It's become a cliche, but it's true. It's true. Anybody can be a craftsman of a certain level if they have the dexterity or the hand-eye coordination or the mental aplomb to do it. But I don't want to say anybody, some more than others. But what's the good of me learning to play the guitar uh, if I either a don't if I don't bring anything else to the table that's me, if I don't write any material, if I don't try to find a sound that sounds really unique to me and pleases me, I'm just playing what I'm learning. And there's millions of probably guitar players like that. Some of them might even be professional guitar players. Some might be on albums for all we know. Um, you could comment on that in the comment section if you want. Um, so anyway, after you've absorbed this emotional content of the information you've acquired, I wrote this little thing: be able to answer questions regarding your thoughts on a work of cinema. So this can be in a film community, it can be at a film society meeting, it can be with a friend on the internet, it can be a friend at your house, it can be at a party, it could be at a movie. And this is the social dynamic of film, which is not crucial to what I'm teaching or trying to teach, impart, whatever, teach, maybe pushing it. Uh, so someone asks you, yeah, so what did you think about that? So that's a cue. That's a cue to you being able to collect those thoughts you've been having as you've been watching it and process that information. And some of us process it faster than others. Some of us have trouble processing, and that's totally fine. Um, but uh, people will less and less look to you as any kind of, not even an authority, but someone they like talking to a common interests about, if you can only give them like one word answers, uh, adjectives that are used constantly in film criticism, like cliches. Um, and I see this all the time all over the internet. And a lot of it's shorthand because we don't have the time or the energy or inclination to lay all that down on paper to respond to, what do you think of that? That sounds kind of pat and to the point and you know, blase. So why not answer it in that fashion? That's a good point, but it's going to be a little different if you're in person with somebody, or if you are part of uh, a film community scenario, which you may not be. But I mean, I consider that to be like you're part of a film society. Uh, you're a part of a group going to see a film that's only going to play like one showing. I mean, that's the community right there. I know everyone in your community, the few there are going to be at the house that Jack built, that one showing of house that Jack built in the city, in the country on that one night. And I was there, so I considered myself part of that community. Um, and but online, there's plenty of different wrinkles on that term community, and lots with film. There's lots of film groups, there's lots of film pages, and there's just it also is a bottomless well of potential knowledge that you can use for yourself to enrich yourself culturally and intellectually, and to find work that you enjoy, that helps you get through this horrible life we're sometimes forced to muddle through. Well, I guess we're always forced to muddle through it, but it's not always horrible, but it can be. Um, so to wrap that up, if someone says, "What do you think about this movie?" Try to avoid the temptation to do what you would do on Facebook, for instance, in a Facebook group, or again, step out of maybe your comfort zone and say, uh, "Well, I thought that this, and this." They don't have to be like profound, earth-shaking points. It just shows the person that's talking to you that this guy watched the same movie as me. But if someone asks you, "What did you think about that?" and you say, "Great," um, that ends that connection right there. That ends that communication. Or it was a masterpiece, and then they're waiting. Why is it a masterpiece? That then the burden's on you because you've made this, strong declaration. Um, and again, if all you can say is this a masterpiece, but not really say why it's a masterpiece, then you haven't been reading the film. You haven't been thinking through the film. Maybe you're processing it very slowly, and that's totally legit. Um, or maybe you were just like that kid in school who's doing just enough to get by, and I don't need this other bullshit. And some people are like that in society. Socially, they're like that. I'm just going to give the basic niceties, and then I don't have to do all this other, getting to know people and this icky, hanging out and learning people and gaining friends. And I don't blame them. That's a minefield. It can go well or poorly. It can bring joy to your life or scar you forever. Engaging in anything more than an absolutely surface exchange with another human. So I would just say think before speaking, if you can. And if you can, or if the channel is open, try to feel before thinking. Let's getting back to the Bruce Lee. So regarding the class, quote unquote, this is not a formal or a master class. At any point, feel free to drop, ignore, return to previous habits. Next point, I am still learning as well. Yes. I'm attempting to guide attitudes to facilitate greater learning. Not teaching as any absolute authority, fact-wise or in a technical sense. But I do have a lot of that information. I have the starting point. And so another point is if you don't hate me before starting the class, there's a fair chance you will after taking it. Well, I guess there's not really a class, so maybe you won't hate me, but you might, and that's cool. I mean, I hated my art teacher in high school, but the stuff he taught me is still with me, you know. And I'll go ahead and acknowledge there will be some bias in my selections and recommendations. There is no way to avoid it, but are those biases any more or any less biased than the ones you brought into this course? Ask yourself that. Like, Henry's talking a lot about X kind of movie, and that's just that's hypocritical. I'm not learning. Well, when you got into the class, were you into only X kind of movie? It can be any other X kind of movie, and I don't mean the X-Men films. Like, oh, I was into this to the exclusion of so much else. If the answer is yes, that's where you were, then your bias was greater than mine. So, at the very least, you're learning from me, not necessarily because of what I'm doing, but because of what I'm not doing. I mean, if I'm lingering and being overly biased and heavy handed, then right there, you're learning what I've been telling you before, which is that try not to fall into your comfort zone. Keep challenging yourself. So, there's a lot of things that limit our appreciation of things and our learning abilities. All kinds of things, our mental health, our socioeconomic factors, our physical health, our socialization, um, bad experiences from the past, or even good ones, but experiences that have been indelible. All of these things can get in the way of you expanding that knowledge. And that's, I think, true of anything, really. We all learn in different ways and have different learning curves. So, the last few I'd say is the class is imaginary. There are no grades, degrees, credits, or careers ahead. But the lessons are real. The information is true to the absolute best of my knowledge. Perspectives are valid. Yes, your perspective as well as mine. In some cases, perhaps more. You may learn more about something than me and be able to have a deeper appreciation than I do for it. That's awesome. There's no homework, there's no grades, but I think if people are having problems with it, I'll critique them, but I'll try to be cool. So the final thing, which I touched on already, is why me? I've already established I'm not a real authority on the art form or any art form. Why me? I said, well, I already said this before. I know enough, just enough to get you started. And why not me? Um, a lifelong layperson guiding a lifelong layperson. It could be the blind leading the blind, or it could be lending a hand to a brother or sister to move forward and to learn and to grow. Um, so as these videos circulate, I don't know with what frequency, it'd be great to get some comments in the comment section. A disclaimer I'm going to go ahead and read is that toxic comments, and that can be interpreted various ways. Toxic comments will be met with aggressive replies and then deleted. So that's kind of where that goes. So we're not into the syllabus, we're not into the actual works, yet. But this is fine. I've gotten this far, so you guys can mull this over and let me know what you think. And I probably won't put another one of these up for a bit. That will give everybody time to kind of digest this and see if there's something they'd like to do with me for fun, but also for enrichment. And I think it would enrich all of us. All right, thank you. I'm going to split now. Take care.